Hello everybody, welcome to the latest of our Keep Optimizing Expert Q&A webinars. If you've not attended one of these before, let me explain a little bit about it. Each month on the Keep Optimizing podcast, we focus in on a different, usually a marketing method. This time we're doing marketplaces because it's really relevant for those running e-commerce brands. And across the month, I'm joined by a number of experts and specialists in that area who kind of entertain and enlighten us about a key angle. And then we all get together on this Q&A webinar to kind of discuss in general and answer your questions. Now, if you haven't seen the podcast episodes, don't worry. That's okay. We're still really pleased to have you here. You can still ask us your questions, and you can always go and catch up on those podcast episodes later. But yeah, please do ask us your questions. Now, wherever it is you're watching us, somewhere around you, there will be some place you can put in a question for us. We are only here for 44 minutes. Okay, it's a 45-minute session. I've already talked for a minute of it. So we're only here for another 45 minutes. So do get your questions in early because the discussion gets going and we run out of time for me to ask your questions of our guests if you don't ask them early. So my top tip is ask your questions early, i.e. now, or as soon as you think of them, so as I get a chance to ask them, because I'd far rather be asking your questions than my questions, because we're producing this for you. So I am very much not a marketplaces specialist. So I have got a group of brilliant people who I will tell you about in a minute. And this ugly, horrible slide is here to remind me of something that I keep forgetting about, which is kind of mad considering what it is. Because in the last week, we've been named one of the 8 digital marketing podcasts to know all you need in 2022. And in fact, number 1 on the list. How cool is that? Keep optimizing at the top of the list. So if you're tuning in, you're tuning into the right place. Anyway, enough of me forgetting and getting excited by my own press. Let's talk about our guests. And we've just had a comment coming us doing that. We've had a question in already. Chrissy, thank you for that. I will definitely be putting that to our guests. Guests who are just off screen right now. I'm not telling you what Chris's question is yet. You can live in suspense on that one. Okay, so the guys who are waiting in the background to come on stage and answer your questions are, we've got Wragg from eCommeleon, who has a brilliant special offer for those of you who are here right now, which is, if you quote, keep optimizing when contacting eCommeleon before the 30th of September, so you've got almost 2 weeks to do that, but do it today. Go on, do it now. You will get 30% off your first 6 months account fees of the services of eCommeleon. So that's well worth doing, isn't it? And you can get all that at eCommeleon.com. We've also got Martin Heubel joining us from Consulterce. And he has a free white paper on offer about how to profitably navigate Amazon in times of inflation and rising costs. Was ever an ebook more timely and very closely aligned to what we were talking about on the podcast too. You can get that via keepopt.com/Consulterce. And we've also got Tom Baker joining us from FordeBaker. And he is offering a free consultation on anything to do with selling on Amazon. And you can get that via FordeBaker.com. And yes, we have kind of Tom and Martin are our more Amazon for brands experts, and Jesse is more the whole wide world of marketplaces too. So we've got plenty of experience here to help you navigate your way through the world of marketplaces for e-commerce brands. I think it's time we brought our guests up and let them tell you a little bit more about themselves and their expertise. So, Jesse, would you like to kick us off, please?
I can do, yeah. Thanks, Chloe. So yeah, my name's Jesse. I'm co-founder and managing director at eCommeleon. So we're primarily a software company based in Leipzig in Germany, but I'm actually originally from the UK, and I've been living in Germany for 7 years and have been in e-commerce for 7 years. Originally on the agency front, where we used to help retailers expand into marketplaces expand internationally via marketplaces. And then we moved into the software branch, bringing what we used to use as an internal software to enable that. We brought it to the market as an external product, which is now eCommeleon.
So thoroughly tried and tested. Tom, you could go next.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Tom Baker. I'm the founder and CEO of FordeBaker. We're a full-service global Amazon agency for ambitious brands. So that means that we offer all services that a brand could need to sell internationally on Amazon, whether they're seller, vendor, doesn't matter what type of category, size, or ambitions that they have. We've got the right sort of team and expertise to deliver that.
Excellent. And last but definitely not least, Martin, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Martin Heubel, founder and director of Consulterce, a strategy consultancy for first-party vendors at Amazon who are searching for ways to actually improve their bottom lines or profit margins with Amazon. Worked for roughly 5 years at Amazon myself in the function of a category manager and worked across different departments, home housewares in Germany, but also then in the UK, where I took on additional responsibilities as a buyer in the food sector.
Awesome. So behind the scenes knowledge of Amazon. So we have got loads of questions coming in, but there's one which Jesse tipped me off about, which I'm gonna now. I've told you Jesse tipped me off, so I can't really pretend to know everything by asking this, but I'm gonna sound like I'm up to the minute on this, which is Amazon have announced a whole load of new stuff for brands that allegedly is going to make marketing to customers easier. Jesse, you posed the question, so any details we should add in, and then Tom volunteered to answer it, because this is totally new, and I'm really putting the guys on the spot by making them try and answer this. So, Jesse, what's this about?
Yeah, I guess for context, the question I threw into the round was, do either of you guys know anything about this? Because I've read some bits about it here and there, but it's not. I'm more of a breadth of marketplaces rather than a depth in any particular marketplace kind of guy. What I've seen, and I don't know what this is going to look like or how it's going to be implemented, but it seems that Amazon is making it easier for brands to communicate with their customers. There seem to be different functionalities allowing people to direct traffic back to their website, as in back to their own D2C brand website, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a big one for Amazon sellers. And the second thing is communication with the customers. Amazon seems to be opening up a few more doors. I don't know if that means allowing sellers to communicate via their direct email addresses, or if Amazon are going to allow sellers to simply communicate a little bit more than, hey, here's your tracking status. But yeah, so I'm curious to see from Tom or Martin if you guys know any more about that, if you've got any opinions on it, because it seems quite interesting for me.
So Tom, you seemed we were doing this just before we went live, so even I'm not sure, guys, what Tom's going to say here. But Tom, I think you've started scratching the surface to see if this is good for us or if this is just meh.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing. So it was the Amazon Accelerate conference last week. So so annual conference, they're announcing a raft of new features that will roll out over the 6-12 months and so on and so forth. So Jesse's kind of touched on some of the more important or the bigger announcements that came out. So email, so that is sort of developing into I was going to call it a CRM system. That's probably going a bit too far, but essentially, sellers have always been fairly restricted in what they can email to the customer, when they can email, how often they can email, for very good reasons. That's really open to abuse. Amazon has clamped down on that a lot because it was a wild west. Many things within Amazon were a wild west. So that's going to clamp down. But then what they've done is then put that into a more of a program that's more controlled by Amazon, but then enables brands to then communicate with the customer post-purchase. So someone's bought the product from you, and let's say you have a sort of regular replenishment of that product every 3 months or something, you might want to email them, 2 months after that first purchase. So very, very similar to kind of the usual sort of email marketing that you would do on your own website, but in a much more limited format. There's a couple of other things that.
So Tom, would it be fair to say it's more that Amazon want us to do their email marketing for them, rather than we shouldn't see this as a big opportunity to turn an Amazon buyer into an own website buyer?
Well,
this
I think
is more about growing Amazon sales.
It does play in well with the timing of things like Buy with Prime and the whole Amazon Shopify war that's going on. these functionalities all kind of come into play with each other. If you've got a Shopify seller installing the Buy with Prime plugin, that's theoretically taking money away from Shopify's payment providers and other connections. So I think there's a lot of different factors all coming into play with it, but it certainly seems like Amazon's taking steps into that non-Amazon part of the e-commerce ecosystem.
So simply because we've got a lot of questions coming in from the audience, which I really want to get to because they're really stuff we can actually take action on. And it sounds a little bit like this one for many businesses is a bit of a, let's see where the dust falls before we invest too much time in it. Tom, would that be a fair?
Yeah,
what you've seen?
I would say of all of the things that they've released, I'd say I'm going to be quite skeptical and say none of them are game changers. I think like things like email, like so subsequent purchases, how many businesses actually have that kind of repeat purchase on their product? It's quite a limited amount of products if you really think about it. So, and then if you think about how many opt-outs you get on emails on Amazon anyway, you will get a lot of people opting out of these emails straight away. Like, why the hell am I suddenly getting all of these emails? And you will get a flood of opt-outs. So I am quite skeptical about things like this. I think the trend that, if we look at the greater trend here of Amazon trying to develop more features for sellers to connect with their customer, that's a positive thing. Of course it is. Mm-hmm. But I think actually when it comes down to it, they're quite limited in scope and actual usefulness.
Cool. Okay, cool. We're going to leave that one there because, guys, thank you so much for sending in so many questions already. We've got some that are Amazon specific and some which are more generalized. So I'm going to try and alternate between the two of them so everyone gets a chance to answer. And the first one is tailor-made for Martin. So Martin, I'm coming to you with this question from mystery LinkedIn user. I don't know why, I don't know who you are, but anyway, I don't know who you are. So lovely LinkedIn user has asked the question, seller central fees are going up. Other than reviewing all costs, rationalizing the product offers, creating bundles, etc., any other tips to protect your brand margins? Thank you in advance. Martin, like I said, you are the one who's focused so much on profits on Amazon. So what would your advice be to deal with the increase in seller central fees, please?
Sure, absolutely. I think, great question, right? I mean, we're seeing the wider economic pressure is mounting for brands big and small. And I think here you will really need to look at the fundamental basics of what is happening along your value, but also your supply chain. You mentioned already, you need to look at your product offerings, you need to create bundles, you want to drive value in order to also get the average selling price up and also to ensure that customers are having a way to being upsold, so to say. But beyond that, and this is really what the question is directed towards, is what else can you do? And for that, you really need to look at the current really P&L and seeing what's going on there. So where are you actually spending your money? And is there anything that you can either cut in terms of costs or can you get rid of? But alternatively, I think there's not only a cost-cutting opportunity that you should also, in good economic times, should be done at a regular basis, but you should probably also look at the optimization potential in your supply chain in particular. So are there ways where you can actually consolidate certain shipments at a pallet level instead of shipping it only at a carton level, which comes with certain economic benefits because you're shipping it more in bulk? Are the fees of your current carrier and the third-party logistics provider still competitive, or do you need to actually take a look at alternative providers available? This is certainly something that you should do, and the review that you should do for sure, at least on a 3 to 6 months basis. And this is obviously everything that faces towards Amazon, but you also need to look the other way from where you actually source your products or raw materials. So if the dollar exchange rate has changed in your favor, are you actually also renegotiating your prices from which and at which you source your raw materials and products for? Or are you kind of locked into a long-term contract, which you probably want to renegotiate in any way, shape, or form if possible? And really to select the right suppliers, but also to critically question whether the existing supplier relationships that you have are still very competitive, is something where you need to take the emotions out a little bit and really rationalize your business and also get some quotes in from their competitors and really to understand, okay, are there any cost optimization opportunities that are kind of low-hanging fruits? And this is then certainly forming the basis next to creating more bundles, trying to upselling customers, and also ensuring that you're compensating or being compensated for the higher fees that Amazon puts on you.
Nice. That was pretty comprehensive, I reckon. Tom, anything you can add into that one?
Yeah, so just looking at it from a sort of perhaps more from a marketing perspective, but it still comes down to optimization. So I think there's always room for improvement on conversion rate. So really looking at your listings, the user journey into your listings, your keyword research, how you're, I think the critical thing really is how you're persuading that person that lands on your product page to buy your product. There's so much more that so many brands could be doing to extract greater value out of the traffic they're already generating. So for the same cost, can they essentially get more revenue out of that, those people that visit the product pages and go on to purchase? So I definitely think that's something that people need to look at. I also think, longer term for businesses that are, focused on Amazon or any kind of marketplace, inevitably what happens with these, as the marketplaces mature, the advertising costs increase, and actually all of the advertisers become more sophisticated, and bigger brands come on with better margins and more money. So that's always going to happen with every marketplace that people go onto. That is the sort of the theory, and we see that definitely on Amazon. So I think building the brand outside of Amazon's critical as well, and not just for sales on Amazon or sales on any marketplace or sales on your website. I just think generally, like, you can't rely on, say, Amazon advertising for your growth or to improve profitability in any sense. It's a fundamental part of it, but looking wider at actually how you're reaching that audience in a much wider scope than just solely on the marketplace.
Oh, it looks like you're muted, Chloe.
Oh, I keep doing that at the moment. Terrible. Sorry, everybody. And Jesse, thank you for letting me know. Jesse, just saying, I'm going to skip you on this one because the next question I'm hoping is right up your street. And Carl, we know the name of the mystery LinkedIn user. Carl, thank you so much for your question there. Hope that's helped. So the next question we've got, which came in at 2 minutes past the hour. So taking my advice to be quick off the mark, so we have to ask this one. Plus, it's a question I ponder quite a lot at the moment because I feel like this is a space in which there's an awful lot launching and they're not all going to survive. Jesse, we'll start with you. Which is the best sustainable marketplace right now to be listing our products on?
It's a big question, and it depends a lot on where you're based, because unlike Amazon, most of the sustainable marketplaces tend to be country focused. So here in Germany, for example, a really good one is Avocado Store. In the UK, there's VO World, and there's also a new one launching, or perhaps they've already launched, called Greener. There's quite a few that are launching, but as you say, it's very hard to know which ones are going to survive. To be honest, I think it's a very tough market still, and I love what they're doing. I think it's a really important thing because the general message is it's very hard as a consumer to know where do I find products which are ethical, which are sustainable. And these ethical, sustainable marketplaces, they do a lot of that vetting in advance. So as a consumer that the products being offered on there have gone through some form of vetting. And if you're looking for a vegan deodorant and you go on there and there are 3 products to choose from, that's a much easier process. Exactly, Chrissy. Greener is launching soon. Thank you. I think in general, the question is going to be, how do we help these marketplaces to survive?
It's I'm like you. I'm like, it's brilliant. There's this space, and we want loads of them, so they convert people. And then at some point, it's clearly going to consolidate down.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had products that were sustainable, I think I'd feel a slightly moral imperative to list everywhere to give everyone the best chance of success. It's one of these weird things where sustainability is a different. It's a better mindset, a more rounded mindset than just going, oh, I'll wait and see who does the best. Tom, you're nodding away, so I'm guessing you got some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, it was just to sort of support the point you were making, really, Chloe. So I think there is can you say that Amazon is a sustainable marketplace? probably, I don't know how you define it, but like it wasn't designed from day one to be a sustainable marketplace as such. But there are obviously lots of products on the marketplace that would classify themselves as ethical, as sustainable, so on and so forth. And we've got clients in that space as well. With ethical products that do really well on Amazon. I think what somewhere like Amazon can do is obviously introduce that product into a ready to purchase audience. So you don't have to do the heavy lifting of creating the audience, promoting your product. They're already there. You've just then got to persuade them to shift their buying habits from more traditional products, less sustainable products, to your products, and you can do that on Amazon. So I think you've got to be open-minded to that approach as well.
I think it's an interesting twist, isn't it? It's like if you're selling a sustainable product, you should be trying to sell it everywhere, even if it's Amazon. Martin, what did you want to add in?
Yeah, to Tom's point as well, I think in general, right, any business needs to take a look at, okay, where are their customer base or where's the customer base purchasing the products from right now? Because if I'm purchasing on Amazon, I'm looking for these products, and are you happy with your competition offering them that may not even have all the labels, all of the credentials to be as sustainable, as ethical as your brand, for example, right? You're giving away a huge chance there. And I think let's also not forget that a marketplace like Amazon, yes, it depends on where you also obviously draw the line when it comes to the economical impact, the environmental impact. But they also give you the option to kind of ship from your own warehouse, right? So you can certainly own a lot of the distribution, but also a lot of the supply chain yourself if you really want to, and if you feel that you have the capabilities. And I think that's something that some marketplaces do not offer, others do. I think Jesse and Tom, you'll be even better equipped with knowledge to kind of jump in, which the options are in terms of the individual countries that we're talking about. But I think it's always crucial to kind of be where your customers are, and then to kind of reverse engineer what is the best setup that works also very well with the existing capabilities I have for my business as well.
We've had, very quickly, Jesse, because
I'll make it quick, I promise.
Questions.
One thing I just noticed while we were talking about sustainable marketplaces is we all slipped into this blurry line between sustainability and ethics. A sustainable product is not necessarily ethical, and a sustainable marketplace, or I should say, a marketplace like Amazon, whilst you may be able to buy or sell sustainable products there, is not necessarily ethical. And so I think the other question there that comes in is not just where can I sell my products, but what kind of business do I want to be running, and who do I want to be in business with? And those, I think, are some of the fundamental questions that come in alongside the type of products and the type of consumers that you're trying to get out there.
I think it's a tricky one just generally, because I've seen, that you can become some people believe that to be a sustainable marketer, you have to kind of ignore all the neuro-marketing stuff like FOMO and must end soon and countdown timers and all that kind of stuff. And I would heartily argue that we should use our full skill set as marketers to help people make the right decisions. So should you, if you've got the best, most sustainable water bottle in the world, she says, grabbing something randomly from her desk, should you sell it everywhere possible, or should you only sell it in the right places? I think we could probably debate that all day, and I think it's good we bring it up though. However, I want to go on to the next question, which is a whole other world of question, the how to get started question from Lauren Nally. Lauren, thank you very much for asking the biggest question that a brand asks. As you know, I think the biggest question a brand asks in the world of marketplaces is, should I sell on marketplaces? Closely followed by, how do I get started? Jesse, I'll come to you first on this one, because obviously we talked on the podcast about the multi-marketplace strategy for growing the brand and growing the business, and then we'll definitely get the Amazon perspective. I realize this could be a 3-hour lesson, so if we could keep more to kind of go top tips, top things to think about, that would be great.
I'll try and keep it snappy. I think from a brand perspective, the first and foremost question is, do you want to sell yourself, or do you want to sell via a retail partner? And there's no black or white answer to that, because it could be, for example, in your domestic country, if you're a UK-based brand, you might want to sell on Amazon or marketplaces yourself in your own name, but then find retail partners in the US and Europe and anywhere else. So you can certainly look at that combined model, and you might find there that you've got retail partners who have complementary products. Maybe for that water bottle that you're selling, there's a brand that's selling water bottle cleaners, and they're both going through the same retailer who's already got an established, well-performing Amazon account in the European countries. If you're wanting to go down the road of selling on marketplaces yourself as a brand, there's a number of ducks that you have to have in a row first. We've actually got a guide on our website. Sorry, quick plug, but there's like a quick guide of all the things a brand needs to do to start selling on marketplaces. But a few of those are things like making sure your logistics, if you're a larger brand with your own B2B logistics, make sure that you can also do B2C. Can your warehouse also send one box to a consumer and not just a pallet to an Amazon warehouse? If not, maybe look at using a 3PL, third-party logistics company to do that end consumer fulfillment for you. And then I think another couple of quick things would be making sure that you are able to always be in stock, which is easier as a brand, I think, in some cases. But if you're going to start selling on Amazon, which I think is a good place for some brands because it is very low barrier to entry, but it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. But if you are going to start selling on Amazon, I think the first thing would be make sure that you're always going to have stock, because if you start selling, Amazon will be like, hey, here's a new product, let's see how they go. They'll generally help you rank early. But then if you go out of stock, it can plummet very quickly, and it can be very hard to get that back up. At which point I would throw the ball over to Tom or Mark, because I think you guys can pick up nicely there.
Nice segue, and I love that focus on the ops side of it. So often that's where people fall over when they get started, is they've forgotten the fact they need to ship differently, or their systems need to cope with different things. Martin, your advice to someone who's listing their product for the first time on Amazon?
Yeah, get clear on, similar to what Jesse said, what is the business model that you are going after? Is it a wholesale retail model? Then obviously Vendor Central is often the more favored approach, if you can get away into it. Otherwise, you have the Seller Central 3P option, where you can sign yourself up as a seller. But I think first and foremost, you really need to do your homework and understand how are marketplaces working, what is their business model. When you sell on Amazon, there are certain rules that you will have to follow, not only when it comes to your listing, but also when it comes to the overall buy box mechanic. So ensure that you're having the products set up in the right way, and that you're not running into kind of distribution or profitability challenges. And you will quickly realize, once you start digging, that there is a whole lot to understand. And I can only encourage, especially early onwards in the process, if you need help, to kind of reach out and to seek the discussion with brands that are a little bit further ahead in the process. You can also obviously partner with agencies or consultants, but often the more affordable option in the very beginning is literally to talk to peers in your category and to get an understanding of how they have done it. This will typically uncover a lot of the pitfalls that you will otherwise have very expensively sometimes make yourself, and help you to avoid them as well.
Just lost the question there. Sorry, I was trying to do something clever on the back end and totally failed. Tom, we talked about getting the marketing right and getting set up for success. Is it all about the ops at this point, or should we be bringing some of that into play too?
I think you've definitely got to have a clear idea of what your objectives are. The operational side of it's critical. So as an agency, we are marketing and operations. It says that in our strapline at the top of our website on the homepage, because for the very reason that Martin and Jesse have gone through already, like, operations are critical to success. That's the foundation for absolutely everything. So making sure that that's all set up correctly, you understand how you're actually going to interact with Amazon or any other marketplace is fundamental. I think beyond that, there's a few things that you really need to think about. So firstly, if we're looking at sort of marketplaces in general, then you've got to understand that, going back to one of Martin's points earlier, where is the customer? Which of all of those different marketplaces are more likely to attract the customers that you want to sell to, or the people that want to buy your product? So that's the first goal, really. And then really starting to look at what are your actual goals, To begin with, I'd say to everybody, you've got to start off with looking at revenue growth. There's no point trying to be profitable from day one. You might make a lovely, you can be profitable, but you're never really going to make that much money. So you can have a nice profit margin, but not actually much profit coming through. So I'd really look at marketplaces through the prism of a sort of invest to grow strategy. So the earlier that you can gain that traction through lots of different marketing activities, not just about the amount you spend, it's how effectively you spend that money, how you optimize your product pages, so on and so forth. But having that mindset that you are going to have to invest for it to have any kind of meaningful impact on your business. But alongside that, prioritization is key. If you've got a 500 SKU product range, there's absolutely no point trying to launch all of those 500 on day one all at the same time. Like, it's a huge amount of work. You're not going to be able to gain traction on all of those products. I wouldn't go for that sort of far and wide approach. I'd really try to prioritize down based on where's the greatest demand, which categories am I strongest in, where do I have the best margin, and consolidate your effort and your budget, your time and your focus on that kind of on a smaller group of products to begin with, and then kind of roll out from that point onwards.
Excellent. And Jesse, would that limiting the stock make sense on all marketplaces? Is that a catch-all, or is that more of an Amazon specific piece?
I would say that's more of an Amazon specific thing, purely because there are some marketplaces that will only allow you to advertise your entire product range, or at least they don't only want a small section. And I'm talking more about like the second tier marketplaces now, where they will say, hey, brand, we think your products are great, so they're coming to you and we'd like you to advertise them on our marketplace. They don't want you to be like, hey, okay, cool, you can have one product. They want the range because that's what's attracted them to you. If I can just jump on and add one more point to the how do we get started. One thing I think, if you are just starting to sell on marketplaces, please make sure you've got some form of external data source for your products. It doesn't have to be an expensive PIM. It can just be a Google sheet, but just make sure that whether, if you, and I think ideally create your listings with flat files. Just because when you start...
Sorry, Jesse, what's a flat file?
Sorry, Amazon specific upload file. It's like a complicated
cool.
Excel sheet. But some kind of external data, because as soon as you type a title into Seller Central, because as Tom said, you might want to start with one or two products, and it's easy to go into Seller Central and type a title, add some bullet points, you press submit, and that's in the void. And it's kind of 50-50 if you're ever going to be able to get that data again. And by the time you've added 500 products and you're ready to start selling on, say, OnBuy, you need to be able to get that data out again somehow. Like, you can't use all of that data on OnBuy because OnBuy wants a different title from you. But you can use that as the basis for expansion. But if it's all locked in the back end of Seller Central and you've been making changes to it over a few years, you're kind of stuffed. So you just want to make sure you've got that somewhere else, even if it's just a backup.
Well, as Lauren said, awesome set of tips and advice there. I guess that my summary of all that would be, it's like anything. Don't do it on a whim. Think it through. Learn the as you've just experienced some of those things to avoid if you want to be successful in it. Okay, we have I've got a couple of kind of what I think are going to be quick fire questions, but anything could happen. Then we've got quite a big one. We've still got time for a couple more questions. If anybody watching live right now wants to ask them, get them in the chat right now, so as I can bring them through into our session. Okay, quick fire number one. Etsy. Are Etsy ads actually worth it? I'm assuming yes, if you know how to use them, because that's usually the case on a marketplace. Jesse, I'm only coming to you on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool.
Very product specific.
Super quick fire. Next quick fire one. I don't even know what an Amazon post is. So, Martin, Tom, either of you able to enlighten us?
Yeah, I think it's relating to the ability of brands to create the kind of similar to a social media page, certain posts that then customers can follow. I'm not sure if it's live in the UK. I presume based on your question, it isn't right now, and it's only available in the US as always. It depends a little bit. I mean, the way Amazon runs these tests is to launch it in the US or any other mature marketplace and to let it run at least for a couple of months, 3 to 6 typically. And then to see that it's successful and it's also kind of getting traction in terms of sales data, then they're more inclined to roll it out. The alternative is, even if it's not great in terms of organic conversions, can they kind of couple it with an advertising function to drive then paid kind of traffic through it? And then there's also a high chance of it coming to the UK. I think if you're selling across both marketplaces, it's certainly an interesting one where you should perform a couple of tests and also get to the data itself. So do you see that if you're promoting certain products or listings through a post, is that actually leading to any kind of measurable sales impact or conversion rates uplift? And then if you cannot see that or you cannot get the data out yet, I wouldn't put too much resources against it as of right now. I don't know, Tom, what you're thinking about that.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Nothing more to add.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it when you guys are in agreement. I love it when you're not in agreement.
I didn't even know what an Amazon post was, so.
Me neither. I thought it was like a blog post. So
I thought it was a signpost.
I like that one.
That's why Tom and Martin are on this webinar. Okay, so the last question I've got at the moment, and anyone who's got another question, if you get it in super fast, I might manage to answer it. Can't promise at this point. Is Chrissy, the marvelous Chrissy Clare, has again asked a stonking question, which is build your own marketplace or list on someone else's. And the reason I think this is such a good question is because it feels like in the last 18 months, the new sexy thing to build is your own marketplace, which I always think is the most difficult form of e-commerce to do, because you've got the chicken and egg scenario. You can't get customers till you've got product, and you can't get product till you've got customers. Where do you start? Which is where a lot of people historically, pre the last 18 months, have understood the tech, got the products, but never managed to get the customers, but rarely vice versa. I think this then, for me, bleeds into the increasing interest in, especially the fashion space, of secondhand being bolted onto an e-commerce site. So you add a marketplace option for your customers to sell your product secondhand or to swap your products in the secondhand space. And as it's secondhand September right now, I'm adding that into the question as well. So there you go, guys. Marketplace is the big trend in e-commerce. Should you do your own? Should you list on someone else's? Is secondhand going? Pick something I just mentioned and discuss.
I think we already kind of talked about it before on the sustainable marketplace question, in the sense that it's very hard to build and sustain a marketplace for so many reasons. Pick your poison, whether it's payments, logistics, customer service, legal. Do you go international or do you stay in one country? What about that one customer that you've got from the Republic of Ireland that wants to order something from that UK marketplace? It's a minefield. If you want to, and I think there was the word build a marketplace, but just to latch on to opening marketplace, if I can expand it, if you're a Decathlon or a B&Q and you've already got traffic, go for it. But that key word is the traffic. Who is responsible for generating traffic? That's how I define a marketplace. You have traffic and you want to expand the product range, you can either go and take the risk on inventory, buy a bunch of products, stick them in a warehouse somewhere, or you can just say, hey, you know what? I'm happy with 15%. Let's just open the doors and let a bunch of other guys that have got good products and got good logistics offer their products on my already performing website and call it a marketplace, not a website. If that's not you, there's so many other options where you can be selling your products for way less effort, way less headache. You give up to 20% of the margin on commission, excluding FBA fees and everything else. But Decathlon is a marketplace, actually. Sorry, Chrissy just wrote, I don't think Decathlon would build a marketplace. They launched one, actually. That was why I used them as an example. So for a bit of background knowledge, there's a few different technologies out there specifically designed. So there is a whole market about building marketplaces. So there's technology called Miracle, for example, where Decathlon can say, hey, we want to be a marketplace. They'll buy Miracle plugs in, technical stuff happens. Now we're a marketplace. You as a seller can now go and sell your products on Decathlon. You can sell on lots of other marketplaces that are connected to Miracle or built on the Miracle framework. There's also Spryker in Germany. There's tons of other ones. it's like whack-a-mole. Pick one. It might work, it might not. Ideally, you'll find a process once you've expanded beyond Amazon, which is scalable and lets you latch onto marketplaces all around the world, so that you can take advantage of them when they do pop up. But I find that much easier than trying to build a marketplace. And honestly, if you have to ask the question, I would opt more for selling on marketplaces.
I think it's a strategic piece, isn't it? When you say it comes back down to the traffic, I think that it's a massively different strategy. Like selling on marketplaces is a massively different strategy to e-commerce. Own site e-commerce, selling on a market, building your own marketplace is another massively different strategy. So it has to be gone into wisely. Tom, Martin, anything you want to add into that one? Or are you just going,
Yeah, no, I think
just sell, don't build?
if you look at Walmart's experience, so like obviously Walmart is a huge company. There's no doubt about it. They opened up their sort of third-party marketplace last year, and the floodgates opened, and they had very little control over those sellers that were coming onto the marketplace. Now, decades of sort of brand building and very tight control over what the Walmart experience was suddenly changed as everyone kind of flooded in. Everyone's been waiting for that to happen. Since then, they've clamped down on it because they realize they've created, yes, there's more sellers and yes, there's more product availability than there was before, but it's probably caused more problems for them than it's worth. I think if you are a retailer, you have to do that in a really controlled manner. It's not, you can't just follow the Amazon playbook of being the everything store today. Yes, 30 years ago you could have done that because people were sort of more willing to accept sort of a Wild West nature of buying online and so on and so forth. But today, I think you want to have more control over the customer experience because the customer demands a better experience than they would have done 20, 30 years ago, so on and so forth. So I'd be very careful about sort of trying to go from a retailer and then adding on sort of marketplace features or platform. I think the retail media aspect of that, the sort of link to that is the really interesting thing. So starting to offer brands and advertisers the ability to advertise on a retail website platform, however you want to describe it, so that then they can promote their products that are already on that website, then that's an interesting space. And that that we've seen huge shifts in that area. And I think that's obviously for the right businesses at the right scale, that's going to grow hugely. But I think sort of opening up marketplaces, it's everyone's trying to do it at the moment. I don't think many will succeed. Just the economics of it are really difficult.
Yeah, I think if you've already got your own e-commerce brand and your own e-commerce products, you can benefit and make more impact by using other people's hard work.
Yeah, that's what Amazon do.
Martin, your thoughts on this one?
Well,
we've got
I think
one or two other questions.
As Jesse and Tom said, right, I think there will be happening a lot of consolidation over the next couple of months and years, similar to what we've seen in the quick commerce space that has rapidly accelerated throughout the pandemic and then has come down very hard on a lot of the players out there. So unless you're an established retailer, which most of our listeners won't be, I don't believe it's a good step to actually go towards the direction of creating a marketplace. And even if that is swirling in your head, then that's perfectly fine. At least get the traction that you generate the cash flow in order to have the profitability to kind of reinvest that money in order to attract more traffic. But again, I would be very careful around this. I would probably look at the actual strategy that you're following. Is it to be a consumer brand? Is it to be a B2B brand? Is it to be a retailer? All of those kind of directions follow different paths. Very few have been so far successful in combining all of these. And typically they got a head start either through a lot of external funding or through a head start through an extended positioning in the market that you really need to obsess about and win with in order to be able to capture the attention of the end customer who's ultimately paying for being and using the marketplace.
Okay, we have one last question, which I'm going to flag up to you guys now. I want very short answers to this one. My assumption is that this should be a how high do you want to go it? And it depends on your strategy scenario here and the product and the marketplaces you're listing on. We have very little time. So anyone want to offer anything other than it depends? Sorry for the short answers on this one, Lauren, but this could be a whole couple of hours on its own. Martin.
So typically in product families and in hardlines, for example, so consumer electronics, etc., you will see that the average is more trending towards 20 to 30% of total sales, the rest remaining bits and pieces coming from offline retail sources. So bricks and mortar included, whereas in consumables, especially when we're looking in the Amazon space, it's typically more below the 10, even sometimes below the 5% mark that comes and is generated by marketplaces itself. It depends a little bit on the subcategory we're looking at, but if you're looking at it from a product family level, then these are typically the averages you will be looking at.
So you could use the industry stat to give you an idea of what it might reflect in your business. Okay, yeah. Cool. I can see lots of literal beard scratching going on with Jesse. So quick answer, Jesse, please.
I don't have a concrete answer. I just want to use that as an opportunity to say to just be careful it's not too high. A lot of sellers fall into the trap of becoming too dependent on, it's particularly true with Amazon sellers, but becoming too dependent on marketplaces for revenue. Now, marketplaces are fantastic, but at the end of the day, the ideal scenario is that you're generating as much revenue as you can from your own site where you don't have to give away 20% of the pudding or the pie.
Probably depending on your strategy, but yeah, it comes back to strategy.
Of course. But you said no, it depends.
No, I said anyone got to answer it. Isn't it depends? Tom, very, very quick answer from you before we wrap this one up, please.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I don't have anything to add to that. I think it is very category dependent. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. So that's my way of saying it depends, but slightly differently.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this session. If you're watching this live, you've had their details through the chat functionality. If you're watching this on replay, somewhere near you will be a link to the webpage where all the links are. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you guys for so many questions. A couple of things to update you all on before I say goodbye. First off, our Black Friday episode is coming out next Wednesday. So tomorrow we have another one of our marketplace episodes. And then the following week, we're going Black Friday crazy. So make sure you are subscribed to the Keep Optimizing podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on any of that. And then in October, we are going TikTok crazy. Yes, we're doing our first ever full month on TikTok because I figure it's reached the point where there's enough successful strategies on there that it's worth talking about for a whole month. And I've got 4 excellent experts lined up to talk to you. And we'll be talking in episode 1 about creators. In episode 2, so episode 120, we'll be doing influencer marketing on TikTok. Then the following week, we'll do, they're all apparently episode 120. They're not. Look at the dates. So first episode will be creators, second episode influencer marketing, third episode TikTok advertising, should you, shouldn't you, and if so, how? And then we're going to look finally in our last episode about how you run your own TikTok account. It's very different to other channels, so well worth tuning in for all of those. Think of it as your month-long TikTok masterclass. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. Thank you, everyone, for putting so many comments in the chat. It's been a battle for me to manage to keep up with them all. And as LinkedIn user, who I'm assuming is Carl again, says, thanks to all. Thank you, everyone. Bye.